The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, based on an adaptation by Les Martin. What is time? Is time travel possible? For centuries, these questions have intrigued mystics, philosophers, and scholars. H.G. Wells, a science teacher and science fiction writer, also became interested in the idea. He published a novel called The Time Machine in 1895, and it quickly became famous. In this story of one man's attempt to travel through time, the protagonist builds a black and polished brass time machine and launches it into the future. After a series of harrowing adventures, he returns to the present to relate to his friends the consequences of seeing things to come. The following passage, adapted from The Time Machine, describes how H.G. Wells' protagonist, the time traveler, takes his first flight in the machine he has invented. It was almost 4 in the morning, and I had finished my work, so I measured the levers one last time, and now only one thing was left to do. I had to give the time machine its first test. I sat down in the seat of the time machine and looked at my pocket watch. It said 19 minutes after 4. I held my breath as I gripped the lever and pulled it down a tiny bit. How can I say what it felt like? Only that it felt like falling. It felt like falling through endless space. My stomach was trying to squeeze into my throat, and my mouth was open. It looked like the mouth of a fish gasping in air. Quickly, I pulled the stop lever and felt a slight bump, and the machine came to a stop. I looked around, and my heart sank. My tools were exactly where I had laid them. My coat still hung over a chair, and my workshop was just as I had left it. My machine was a failure. Next, I saw daylight streaming in the window, and my heart beat faster. As I looked at a clock on the mantel, the clock said 9:30. I pulled out my pocket watch and looked at it. It said 21 minutes after 4. I had traveled through time. I had traveled more than 5 hours in just 2 minutes. My time machine had worked. At that point, I suppose I should have stopped and planned my next move, but I had waited too long for this moment. I could not wait any longer to journey through time, so I pulled down the lever again, and this time I pulled it a bit harder and farther. Time outside the machine was speeding up. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. I saw my housekeeper whiz into the room, clean it in record time, and shoot out the door. It was clear that she could not see me. I had to take the next step, so this time I pulled the lever even farther down. The window grew dark, and then it brightened, then it darkened again. Time was speeding by. Days went by like blinking lights as I pulled down on the lever still more. Daylight and darkness became a blur, and the windows and walls of my workshop vanished. The machine was swaying now, and my mind was swaying too. I decided to pull the lever all the way down. The next thing I saw around me was a world of wonders. Huge buildings were rising taller and taller. Skies were changing from dark gray to bright blue. The countryside grew greener and greener. What a fantastic show! It was hard to turn my eyes away, and when I did, I looked at the dials. They told me how fast and far I was traveling. I was shocked. I had gone much faster and farther than I thought. I was in the year A.D. 802,701. Those huge numbers made me lose my head, and I was in a panic. I yanked hard on the stop lever. At last, I paid the price because the stop was too sharp, and the machine tipped over. I was thrown from my seat. Stunned, I lay on soft green grass. I heard a very loud thunderclap, and a shower of hailstones stung my face. It was impossible to see. A fine welcome, I muttered. A man travels over 800,000 years for a visit, and this is the greeting he gets? Then the hail thinned, the sun shone through a break in the clouds, and I got my first good look at the world of the future.
Excerpts from The Time Machine by